So what we're going to see in this presentation is, first off, we're going to be taking a look at the problem, the tremendous problem with plastic pollution out there. And frankly, for like myself and some other people, certainly Chuck and I talked about this, we kind of do our part. We separate our trash and put the plastic material and along with the paper and glass and things in our recycling bin, and we think we're doing our part. But as you start to take a look at this in a little bit more depth, you'll see how overwhelming this problem really is. And then we're going to be looking at the solution. The solution provided by the Corsair Group International. We'll be looking at the revolution that's really been created as a result of the CSR 25 plastic credit. And then all along, we'll be explaining this relative to the business opportunity with Amplivo. So let's start about talking who Amplivo is. So we are an independent partner with Amplivo, and I know there's some of the translation into English isn't ideal. We'll get that corrected on the other version when I can actually edit it. But in any case, Amplivo, as I mentioned, is a wholly owned company of the Corsair Group International. It's not some outside company that's sort of making a networking type of play around an industry. So this is an integral part of the whole Corsair program, which makes it extremely interesting when you see how this is all put together. So what we do is we offer a plastic waste removal service. So it's not a financial product. We're not talking about selling tokens, crypto tokens. We're not talking about selling plastic credits. What we are doing is we are offering a plastic removal service that, as you see, is removing a specific quantity of plastic waste from the environment. And then the CSR plastic credit is a digital receipt that we receive corresponding to the specific quantity of plastic recycled from the environment. And so as a result of this, there's no financial license that's required. It's basically a service because we're selling the service of plastic waste removal. So let's take a look at the situation. Now, we've had some recent conversations within Ihub about what's been going on with plastic actually being in our own bodies. The plastic waste problem is so pervasive in the ecosystem that the fish, the animals are eating it, and as a result, we're finding that it's getting into our own bodies. And let's just take a listen to a couple of videos here to kind of get a sense of really how serious this problem is. So let's talk about the solution to this terrible problem out there with all this plastic. One of the things to keep in mind is for the last 30 years or so, up until just the last couple of years, most of the Western companies have been shipping off their plastic waste, their garbage, over to China and other countries in Asia. And so maybe it's not as much in your face here as it is in other places. But certainly, it doesn't take much to look around and see this material pretty much everywhere. So so they provided a solution to this plastic waste using something called chemical recycling, a process that's called pyrolysis, and they convert plastic waste into advanced bio oil or pyrolysis oil. It has similar characteristics to crude oil, but it can be used as a raw material, as feedstock for the production of new plastic products. And as you'll see, there are mandates happening around the world with about 175 countries that have agreed to develop regulations that are creating mandates on having recycled content necessary in products that are used in human consumption. So not necessarily plastic in cars or plastic in other types of things, but we see when we go to the grocery store, almost everything's in plastic that we're buying for the most part. And most of that does not get recycled. Out of the tons and tons of plastic that's out there, only around 9% worldwide is recycled, and only 4% of that is recycled in the United States. And in that, a lot of that is also, incinerated. So it's really a problem to be able to capture this plastic and be able to use it to make the content that's needed to supply to the plastic manufacturers for recycled content. So one of the things that's really particular about what they've done with Corsair is they've developed controlled emissions, meeting all the international standards. Their facility up in Finland. Finland has the most rigorous environmental standards in the world, and it meets that, but it's basically a zero emission process and zero waste that comes out of it. Everything in it 100% is used. There's only about 3% of material at the end that's carbon black, and that gets sold to the tire paper, I mean, the tire and the paint and the asphalt industry. So it's completely circular. Nothing comes back out into the environment. Additionally, it's very high quality. Shell Oil says that it's the best quality pyrolysis oil they've ever had. That's why they want to buy every drop that we're willing to sell them. And part of that is because of the low sulfur and CO2 content and huge demand. Even before all these mandates are having or are in place that are requiring the recycled content, there's many companies, billion-dollar companies, that are voluntarily basically covering their plastic footprint. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, one of the things that's important is for 4 years now, they've had the ISCC Plus certification process. And this is important because in order for this pyrolysis oil to be purchased and used by the main, the big oil companies and plastic manufacturers for making new plastic, it's required that they have this certification. And from what I understand, they were the first company in Asia to be able to achieve this certification. So let's talk a little bit about, some of the existing plants they had. A lot of their operations started in Bangkok. Again, that's where Jay has been for the last 20 years. And they started with a couple of plants there. They call them Bangkok 1 and 2, two different areas. And when they use the word plant generally in this presentation, they're referring to a reactor. One reactor can basically produce about 100,000 liters of pyrolysis oil a month in one reactor. And generally in the facilities that they're building, ultimately they have 10 reactors per facility. So you're talking 1 million liters of pyrolysis oil a month that they're able to produce. So they got, now this slide is a bit older. They started off with one operational plant back in 2020. They're basically going to have 10 reactors up and running by the end of the year. Actually, 20 reactors up and between, 10 in each one of those locations by the end of this year. So that means 2 million um, liters of pyrolysis oil every month, just from those two locations. Let's take a listen to, or just take a look at just a tour that was done at one of the facilities down in Bangkok. And as you'll recall, recently Rick was over there to have a tour himself. This is the same place, but this is a different tour. Great. So I think it's like 8 tons of plastic um, that's in each time they do a production in one reactor. And these, are going continuously, but 8 tons each time they fill the reactor of plastic that's been removed from the environment. So let's also take a look now at their facility in Finland. They had acquired, well, they didn't really acquire their build out is um, in a what used to be a paper mill in Finland that they had moved it down to South America, built the plant there, and then the facility. This was kind of set out. There was different businesses that were able to do there. I don't know whether they've acquired the space in that, but right now they have this entire L-shaped business, L-shaped portion of it. They just started off, I believe, in this one here, but they can handle 50 plus reactors in that one building. So it's pretty amazing. So it started off with one operational plant. I believe that, I mean, there's more than three now that are in more than installation. They may have those three already operational, but there'll be 10 fully up and running by the end of the year. It's a massive, massive operation, 59,000 square meters, which for us here in the States, that's a lot bigger than when we're thinking about square foot. It's like times nine. So, and the capacity, once this is completely filled with the 50 plants, will be like 45 million liters a year of plastic waste. And let me just kind of put this in perspective. Right now, worldwide, to produce enough plastic, enough recycled plastic content for new plastic that just is meeting the requirements, the mandates that are in process now requires 100 billion liters a year, 100 billion liters a year. Currently, there's only about 40 million liters a year in production, and Corsair's already doing about half of that. And then you could take a look at kind of their footprint, where they got the Bangkok ones and the Finland, and I guess there's one in Sri Lanka I didn't even realize. And then, but operational under development, there's Holland, Canada, South America, US, and even more. There's some 30 projects, and each project is 10 reactors that are in motion of being developed. Like the first one will be in Florida, in Tallahassee, but other ones in Florida, and then a couple in Texas, New Jersey, in Canada. So there's a lot going on, but this is really just the beginning of the major, major expansion we're going to see between now and 2030, and I'm sure even moving from there. But by 2030, the objective of Corsair is to hit 2.5 billion liters every year, 2.5 billion liters every year. Um, and if they do that, that's basically about 2.5% of the requirement that needs to be happening just to meet the standards. That's just with Corsair themselves. There's other producers of pyrolysis as well. So let's take a look at some of the international partnerships they have. Well, first off, at the high-end pyrolysis and Veston group, they're leading companies that are in the production of these pyrolysis systems. They support the industrial development of Corsair Group, and this collaboration began in 2024 with the acquisition of 23 of these pyrolysis reactors. Now, one thing to understand is just buying the reactor system from these folks isn't really what's got us to the point where Shell is able to say this is the best they have. It's taken many years of development in coordination also with Shell. It took 2 years of getting it to the point where it met that standard. And then during that process, 6 months where they wanted batches from every month to see if they were able to maintain that before the Shell started actually purchasing the pyrolysis oil, and they maintain it's the best they've seen. And then also there's Count Group, which is one of the leading oil brokers in Europe for the purchase of pyrolysis oil, that sell it to major plastic producers around the world. And they've been working with them since 2023. And of course, the one that's the most significant is with Shell. As I mentioned, they've been selling the oil to Shell since late 2024, both to their facility in Singapore and also the European facility. But now there's many other companies that they've already got formal relationships with, and companies are coming to them. There's quite a few. So it's nice to be the person that everybody's beating a path to your door, and that's Corsair Group. So one of the things that's also out there is the Corsair Foundation. And Dr. Cherio, excuse me a sec, is the executive director. Dr. Cherio is the executive director of the Corsair Foundation. And so they've a couple of notable things that they've got going on is the Bangkok community help supporting people in extreme poverty conditions, providing food and funding homes. We all saw a little bit of a video of a home that was being provided to a family when Rick was over there. He got to be in that video, but that's coming from the Corsair Foundation. And also, you get a lot of involvement of Amplivo affiliates in the locations involved in a lot of this community activity. And the power of all that that's occurring is what Shell was really impressed with when they tried to understand what's this, you know, um, this direct sales networking type of group that's part of Corsair. How does that fit into the picture? It took them several months of really going through the process and understanding that. And they came to the realization that there's no central company that would be able to have such a tremendous educational and community impact if they didn't have all the individuals that were providing their passion into the process. Also, they also were involved with the collaborating with 7 different Thai fishing associations with a combined 100,000 fishermen that collect plastic waste from the oceans. They would go out there and bring in their nets and get all this plastic, and before that collaboration, they just throw that back into the water. Now they collect it, they bring it into port, and they weigh it when it gets there, and they get paid for it. And it's having an amazing impact on the communities of these fishermen and also other aspects they're doing with it. The other is the Trash for Cash, where they donate money in exchange for plastic waste collected in the poorest areas in Thailand and really making a major impact on the quality of those communities economically. So it's a very, very amazing thing to be part of. Now, this is just a sampling of the many companies that are also participating in these activities. These are in Thailand, they're also in Europe, and these are companies typically that are involved with collection points where people would come and bring the plastic material to these collection points because otherwise they would just end up in landfills. So they bring it to them, and then Corsair collects the material to basically get it to the facilities to turn it into pyrolysis oil. Then additionally, Corsair was invited to present to the European Parliament, and Dr. Cherio was the main representative going in and doing that as a guest, and they got tremendous media as a result of that in Europe. Got a lot of notoriety, and you can see there's a lot of positive media that's been happening, and especially in the last several years about Corsair International in Forbes, Yahoo Finance, Associated Press, Fox. It's quite a bit that's out there, and more as Corsair is really getting the attention from around the world and what they're doing. So let's talk about the third aspect of it, the revolution, the CSR 25 plastic credit. So to get some context on this, what we're going to do right now is kind of take a step back a little bit and take a look at the carbon credit market. Now, a lot of us really don't know a whole lot about it. It seems a little bit more nebulous to us because we don't see it like you see plastic everywhere. But the carbon credit market basically started some 28 years ago, at least in Kyoto, where they developed the protocol with the aim of reducing the greenhouse gases, the carbon dioxide. And the new plastic credit market is kind of a younger brother to the plastic credits, in which individuals and companies can eliminate their own plastic pollution. Now, what's really special is the carbon credits was really only participated with different governments and the largest companies in the world and the banking systems of the world, not individuals, whereas the plastic credit market is down to us at the individual level where we can even offset our own personal plastic new footprint that we've got out there, and companies are able to do it as well. And we'll cover a little bit more about that. So Yahoo Finance basically said that just last year, the carbon credit market was at $1.4 trillion, and it's expected to be 2.3 trillion just in the next 3 years. And so offsetting 1 ton of CO2 in the carbon credits back in 2005 was $5. Today it's more than $60. So you can see how there's an increase in the cost of that activity. And the analysts predict that it'll be very similar in the plastic credit market. So in the next 3 years, the plastic credit market is expected to be 1/10 or 10% of the carbon credit market. So that means the plastic credit market 2028 will be $230 billion, of which Corsair, the world leader in plastic credits, is expected to have 10% of that market. That means that Corsair can have an annual turnover of $23 billion. So again, what is a plastic credit? Well, The World Wildlife Fund basically says that it's a transferable unit representing a specific amount of plastic that's collected from the environment and possibly recycled. With Corsair, it's 100% recycled, removed from the environment. So what are the CSR 25 plastic credits? Well, as mentioned, they're a digital receipt recognized worldwide that certify the removal of plastic waste from the environment. They operate on an open source, highly transparent, and reliable database called the blockchain. Every CSR 25 credit and every transaction is publicly recorded and can be viewed by anybody. So what can you do for the planet? Well, today, thanks to the Corsair Group International, we, as well as companies, can offset their own and our own plastic pollution. How? By purchasing our plastic waste removal service and receiving CSR 25 plastic credits. So how are they distributed? Well, for each kilogram of plastic waste recycled from the Corsair Group, 10 CSR plastic credits are released into the market. So 1 kilogram, and a kilogram is 2.2 pounds, so just a little over 2 pounds. So just a little over 2 pounds of plastic uh, puts 10 CSR um, plastic credits into the marketplace. So one of the things that's really important, and this was done fairly recently, is that Corsair Group International worked in collaboration with the Control Union, a globally recognized leader in sustainability verification, to basically create the standard that's called the CPRS. It's an official verification protocol that's been developed with the Control Union, which is, like I said, a major group. I think they've got somewhere around 180 different offices around the world. So once a recycler such as Corsair itself or any of its collaborating partners completes plastic waste recycling activities, and those activities are verified and approved by an accredited validation and verification body, such as Control Union and others, then Corsair will issue CSR plastic credits based on the verified volume of plastic removed from the environment. So this is really important. We become the standard. There's a formal standard in Control Union. If you went to their website, you would find it. And so again, this is the reason that Corsair essentially is the leading plastic credit provider. So let's continue. So how do we become plastic neutral? Well, first, Corsair recycles plastic waste worldwide through certified supply chains. Actually, it's supposed to be value chains when I looked at the translation I had. So value chains. And so what this means is when a company or an individual decides to have themselves certified as plastic neutral, they're not collecting their personal waste. Okay. As long as an equivalent quantity of waste is collected and removed out of the environment, then that qualifies for it to offset an individual footprint. And then for every kilogram of recycled plastic, Corsair releases into the market 10 CSR 25 plastic credits. And again, individuals like ourselves and companies purchase our plastic waste removal service to offset their own plastic pollution. An example, 1,000 kilograms equals 10,000 CSR 25s. And so basically, at least here in the US and most Western countries, every individual pretty much has about 50 kilograms a year of plastic waste that they put into the garbage or even recycling that's getting into the environment, about 5,000 kilograms over the course of a lifetime on the average. And people can offset their own waste if they want to, either monthly or annually or in one purchase, as well as companies can do the same. So how do they receive this plastic credit? Basically, it can be purchased on the open exchange. L Bank, one of the top 20 world exchanges out of Hong Kong, carries the CSR 25 plastic credit exchange, bearing in mind that the CSR 25 plastic credit only began as a proof of work credit at the beginning of this year. And as they're metered out over the course of time, there's not a whole lot of them yet going into exchanges. We get 5% of them immediately right now, another 45% at 10 months, and the balance of 50% at 20 months. And so those exchanges will, the amount on the exchange will start really exploding really after the first 10 months since it started this year. That'll be October, November, December or so. For those that want to exchange them, I think most people are going to want to hold on to them, or be able to provide them to companies as that are customers and things of that nature. So the Amplivo plastic neutral packages are also another way and the best way to be able to get the waste removal service. And it's always at a lower price relative to the market. Like right now, today, a kilogram worth of credits, that would be 10 credits, is about 41 cents. And on the L Bank exchange, it's somewhere between a dollar and a dollar 10. So we're getting it at a discount, and companies are purchasing the credits, as a customer of Amplivo, getting the credits to, and start to be ahead of the curve. So they have them as they're starting to require them. So that's basically going over when you're able to receive the distribution of those. So let's take a look at some of the major global brands that are already using plastic credits. Nestle, Microsoft, Starbucks, Unilever, PepsiCo, and a lot of these companies are also in conversations with Corsair relative to starting to use, the Corsair plastic credits. These are companies that are already using Corsair plastic credits. Diversey is $1 billion company. A lot of these other companies are in Europe and in Thailand. But we're going to see a plethora of companies that are going to be using it. Now, when a company uh, basically uses it to certify that they're plastic neutral, those credits are removed from the circulation of the plastic credit market, and they're put into a retirement wallet where they're always able to be audited forever on the blockchain. They're not burned like some people here in crypto tokens when they're removed. They're burned, removed completely from circulation. These always remain in a place that could be audited in the retirement wallet. So what is it, the reason that a company would do it right now without the mandate? Why would they be doing it right now? Well, first off, it really positions them as a sustainable brand. It communicates their personal commitment to fight against this plastic waste, which is a huge problem that everybody, no matter what, kind of place where they're coming from, whether they're for it or against different things going on in the environment, everybody agrees on the severity of the plastic waste problem. And the other thing is, they're able to write off tax advantages, the credits that they use. So they're getting the positive PR, and also the lift that it gets for consumers that are preferring, if they have the option, to be able to use products that are plastic neutral. And then also because of the standards the regulations that are now moving in place, it's going to be a mandated thing. So we're looking at this happening for many years to come. So a couple examples, Gioia is a major cheese manufacturer in Italy. They're one of the first major companies in Europe to become plastic neutral. So far they've removed 3.1 million kilograms of plastic from the environment by purchasing the Corsair waste removal service, plastic waste removal service, 3.1 million kilograms. And then you've also got Todi, soccer school, a famous school in Italy with Francisco Todi. It's the first soccer school that did it, but there's all this is happening with so many different groups that are doing it that want to get on the bandwagon and feel like they're really making an impact in the world basically getting involved with the CSR plastic credit. So today, the CSR plastic credit is the most selling plastic credit in the world. So you can be part of the solution, and you can be a pioneer in this revolutionary business by participating with Amplivo, and that's really where we come in with iHub Global. So we can sign up on the platform. Of course, with us individually, currently, we're already in. We just need to activate our position. But once we do that, we'll be able to provide our link to other individuals to be able to join us in the Amplivo group. So the activation only costs 10 euros, about $12 US on an annual basis, $12 a year. So really, this could be done pretty much in any place in the world, regardless of how challenging the economy may be. So to become a partner and earn commissions. And then we can sell our plastic waste removal service packages, and the Amplivo network is active worldwide. So ask for information about the compensation plan from the team, which will be providing that information. And you'll be able to really understand how powerful this is as an opportunity to both do good and do well as a result of it in this. So join the mission. You can help to clean up the planet from plastic. You can be part of a world leading company, and Amplivo partners are already active in dozens of countries around the world and being involved in an ethical and exclusive and unique company and opportunity in the world. So that's basically the presentation.